The next element that we're going to take a look at is texture. How would you define texture? When we're talking about elements of art, texture is an element that describes how something feels, what it actually feels like, or how it looks like it could feel. Creating texture in art is sometimes easy and sometimes it's more challenging. On the left, you can see that the sculptor added those pointy, organic shaped forms to a bowl shape, and that creates a very real kind of pokey texture if you were to hold that. On the other hand, the monster on the right, it's a little harder because it is a two-dimensional surface. It's on a screen. It's like an illustration. So what did the artist do to suggest that the monster is furry? What types of lines or shapes were used? There are two types of texture, real and implied. So for real texture, real tactile, meaning it's touchable texture, you can actually feel the texture. So take a look at the left image on the top. You've got sandpaper. If I were to touch this, it would actually feel scratchy to the touch. On the right, you've got cotton balls that would certainly feel soft and fluffy if you were to touch those. On the other hand, if you look at the bottom, the artist has created just a visual texture. So it's something that is implied or looks a certain way. But of course, if you were to touch it, it wouldn't actually feel that way. So you've got this shiny, soft looking hair. However, if you were to touch the canvas that this was painted on, it wouldn't actually feel hairy. It just looks like soft hair. Same thing with these letters here. They look sort of like oozy slime because the artist used the curved lines and then these additional shapes kind of looking like it's gloppy. However, if you were to touch those C's, it would feel exactly like marker on paper. It wouldn't actually feel oozy woozy. Now you can create real texture, and this is when artists either use materials that already have a distinct texture or they apply a material to the surface of their work to give it an actual texture. For example, in the painting Starry Night, Van Gogh applies his paint very thickly onto the canvas so that it has more of a textured three-dimensional look. Creating real texture can be done through art processes like collage. A collage is the type of artwork that is created when various materials, you can see here on the right, looks like cardboard and yarn and paper and a pipe cleaner. So actual materials are arranged and glued together onto a paper. They don't necessarily have to be just on a paper. If you visit the library, you can see a series of painted canvases that Art Club added kind of like a garden to, using all sorts of different textured materials. Repoussé is a technique in which artists use tools to hammer texture into a metal surface. You can see that here. Artists using this metal tool here. Obviously the hammer isn't pictured, and hammering parts down and then leaving other areas up. So it has almost like a relief sculpture look, just made out of metal. Creating implied texture is just a technique or skill, a set of skills that artists have to learn. So you can see on the bottom left, back to the hair again, that the artist really had to understand how value works to create kind of the lights and darks that give this the illusion of being hair. In this picture, the artist needed to think about how to vary line type in order to give the illusion of that slimy looking letter. Now, this is a painting by Chuck Close. You may actually be surprised to discover it's a painting. Chuck Close is a photorealistic painter, and a number of his portraits are like this, where at first glance you might actually think it's a photograph. And obviously, Chuck Close is very talented and capable of capturing realistic textures, the man's lips and even like the pores in his skin and the hair and all of that looks very realistic. And also man-made products, the plastic and the glass, you see the highlights that give this the effect of being very realistic looking. Like just reach out and, I don't know if you'd want to touch his face, but it certainly looks like you could.